Okay, if you turn to page 45, we're going to go over a different type of word problem. These have to do with consecutive integers. Now, a consecutive integer or consecutive integers are numbers like 1, 2, and 3. Those are 3 consecutive integers. 4, 5, and 6 are 3 more consecutive integers, like 13, 14, and 15. Those are all consecutive integers. Notice, if you start with 1, to get to 2, you add 1. If you start with 1 to get to 3, you add 2. So you're adding 1, then you're adding 2. To get to 5 from 4, you add 1. To get to 6 from 4, you add 2. For 13 to 14, you add 1. 13 to 15, you add 2. So if I start with x, and I want the next consecutive integer, I'd add 1. If I want the one after that, I'd add 2. So to get 3 consecutive integers, if they're unknown, we will make them x, x plus 1, x plus 2. Now, let's think about consecutive even integers, like 2, 4, 6, like 14, 16, and 18, like 28, 30, and 32. Those are all examples of 3 consecutive even integers. So if I start with 2 to get to 4, I add 2. If I start with 2 to get to 6, I add 4. If I start with 14 to get to 16, I add 2. To get to 18, I add 4. So I think you see the pattern, that if they're even integers, they're 2 apart. So if they're unknown, they're x, x plus 2, x plus 4. Now, counterintuitively, you might be thinking, oh, well, if they're odd, I'm going to add 1 and 3 and not 2 and 4. But that's not the case, because the difference between 2 odd consecutive integers is still 2. So even though the integers are odd, if you have 3 odd consecutive integers, they're still going to be x, x plus 2, and x plus 4. Okay, so now let's look at the first problem. It says find 3 consecutive integers whose sum is 18. So I have to find 3 consecutive integers. So I have my first consecutive integer, my second consecutive integer, my third consecutive integer, and then they give me a total. So to do these, we're going to make little charts, because I find these charts very helpful. There. So now I'm going to start out by defining my unknowns. I know my unknowns is my first, second, and third consecutive integer. My first one's going to be x. My second will be x plus 1. My third would be x plus 2. Because they're consecutive, not consecutive even or consecutive odd. Now I'm going to add my x's. I get 3x. I'm going to add my numbers. I get 3. And I'm told that these 3 consecutive integers add up to 18. That's part of the problem. So you notice this chart flows down and gives me an equation. Now I subtract 3 from both sides. 3x equals 15. Divide by 3, divide by 3. I find out that x is 5. Now I just plug it right here. So x is 5. So x plus 1 would be 5 plus 1 is 6. 5 plus 2 is 7. And the other neat thing about this chart is now I can say 5 plus 6 is 11 plus 7 is 18, and it also gives you the ability to check your answer. Okay, so that's number 1. Now, number 2 says find 3 consecutive even integers. So first consecutive even, second consecutive even, third consecutive even, and total. So if my first is x, my second is x plus 2, my third is x plus 4, add my x's together, it's 3x plus 6. And in this case, it tells us the total is negative 108. So again, it flows into an equation. I subtract 6. Now divide by 3. It's going to be -3 and 24, -38. Now, be careful here because I think it's really easy to say -38, -40, -42 without thinking. But you're supposed to be adding 2. And when you add a +2 to a -38, it's -36. And if I add 4 to -38, it's -34. And if I check, it works. Okay, so when they are negative, just be aware of the fact they're going to appear to be going down because a lesser negative is a greater number. Okay, now we're going to do the last one on this page, number 3. And now we're dealing with consecutive odd. Second consecutive odd, third consecutive odd, and total. So we have x, x plus 2, x plus 4, 3x plus 6, and the total is 69. Now, notice, even though these are consecutive odd, I'm adding 2 and 4, because the difference between odd numbers, like 1, 3, and 5, the difference between 1 and 3 is 2, the difference between 1 and 5 is 4. So that's why, even though they're odd, you're adding 2 and you're adding 4. Now I'm going to subtract 6. 3x equals 63, x equals 21. So I get 21, 23, 25. And they add up to 69. Okay? So you can go ahead and try page 46 on your own, 4, 5, and 6, and check your answers in Google Classroom in my answer key packet.